book on gossip. Did you ever read that book?
I did read that book. It's a larger conversation. What I would invite is we could have a separate dialogue on gossip. There's actually some things that I disagree with in the book, but overall, I thought it was a good book. There's actually another book by that name, put out by the folks from Esha Torah, which is also quite good.
Really? But you remember what it's called or who it's by?
I believe it has actually. I thought it had the same name.
Guard Your Tongue? Oh, no.
No.
That was the Hafetz Chaim.
That was Israel Meir Kagan, the Hafetz Chaim. That's correct. And I think when we do this dialogue on gossip, I think the rules change somewhat. I'm actually working on a responsum with Rabbi Gershon Winkler, and one of the issues in the responsum is this particular issue, meaning, the rules of gossip change in the internet, right? Mm-hmm. Because the internet is such that a record is immutable, right? Mm-hmm. And because the ability to do damage to the internet is far, 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 far greater than the social contexts in which the laws, of slander were written. So naturally, the nature of the Torah, as you know, is that halacha is within its own internal integrity, right, evolving, right? There's no one within orthodoxy who would disagree with that, right? And the only difference is that it's got to involve within its own integrity. So clearly, the laws of slander become even more dramatic, when we're talking about blogs, and they change based on the internal principles of the law itself. But let's save that for a separate gossip dialogue. We don't want to gossip about it now.
Right. I would not agree that, for instance, it's hard to talk about hate sites unless we use some specifics. And so, from my perspective, I would not place the awareness as a hate site. That does not mean that I would, say I stand behind everything they do. I certainly would not have sent out the email saying that, rumor has it the Gafni's attracted to prepubescent boys. But from what I've seen on that site, 80% of it is called from mainstream news reports and about 20% from blogs.
But it's the 20%, Levi, right? The 20%, Levi, that actually makes it into a hate site. In other words, it's the 20% that actually, becomes, very, 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 very difficult. And also, even when you gather things, it's how you frame them. It's the titles you put on them, that actually change the world dramatically, right? And, that's enough said on that. I'm actually done with this topic.
Can you give examples of other hate sites online?
I mean, there's a long list of examples, of other hate sites online, ranging from, sites that, that are, put out by the extreme left, which caricature, right-wing figures in completely hateful ways, which are not, based on, fact or empirical evidence, to, extreme right-wing sites, which again, ignore fact, ignore, truth, and distort, and bend truth, for the purposes of defaming, and really defiling. It's more than defaming, really defiling, the object who they're talking about. And in any of these sites, which I'm not going to actually name particular names now, I'm not interested in kind of giving them traffic, but any of these sites are in complete violation, of any ethos, any Judaic ethos, any ethos of ethical monotheism. And
it's kind of hard to talk about them unless you name them. It's so general. Not much use.
Right. Well, I'm sorry that's not much use. Right. But I'm actually thinking about this dialogue and whether it's efficacious in general. In a number of levels. Right. But I just don't think that it's helpful. I'm not interested in supporting the hate sites. In any sense. I'm just not really interested in naming them and sending people to kind of to those sites. So that's pretty much what I have to say about it. I mean, I think it's a pretty commonly known fact, that hate sites exist and that they exist on the extreme left and the extreme right. We'd have to kind of go through, take one site and go through, piece by piece. What did they say about X? But even that itself, right? And that's where we have a different sensitivity. Even that itself, brings me to then repeat, right, the gossip. right? So while I was willing to do it about myself, right, because I have the authority to do that in relationship to myself, right, to do it about someone else would be, in a sense, colluding with the hate site and essentially repeating, again, in the context of a public dialogue, right, the hate mongering, and all that many people would remember would be not that, that Gafni said, this was a hate site, but they'll remember the particular rumor that I've repeated about a person. So just on a halachic level, I find that, not possible and, and highly objectionable. Yo.
Okay, so did you have a part 2 on hate sites, or did you want to wrap it up?
No, totally good. Excellent.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to wrap this up with pressing some buttons.
Okay.